Hello, everybody. I'm John DeBenedictis, Executive Director of the National Soccer Coaches Association of Canada, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Bench, our webinars that we've been putting on pretty much since COVID, and we keep her going. So today, our special guest is Canada's national men's team coach, Jesse Marsch, and hosting is our former broadcaster for many, many years, a good friend, Alf de Blasis. So Alf, if you'd like to take over, that'd be great.
Sure, John. Thank you so much. It's really an honor to be co-hosting this special webinar on behalf of the NSCAC. It's not often that we have the chance to speak to the national team head coach, but today we have that privilege. So Jesse, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to spend the next hour or so with the NSCAC members and other participants.
Nice.
We'd like to welcome all the attendees with us today. Many, of course, from right across Canada, but many more are joining us from the US, the UK, Italy, Spain, Mexico, and even as far off as Zambia and South Africa. So thank you to everyone that is joining us today.
I coached some of the best players from Zambia in Salzburg.
Wow.
So maybe we could talk about them.
Yeah.
Zambian football.
You must have coached just about anybody from all walks of life, from all parts of the earth. I just wanted to mention the NACAC's technical director, Tony LaFerrara, is joining me as co-host today as we discuss World Cup coaching strategies with Jesse. So just a reminder that, like most of these webinars, this is an interactive session, so we'll be taking questions from our participants from time to time. If you'd like to ask Jesse a question, just click on the icon with the 9 dots at the bottom of the screen and type your question in the Q&A box, and we'll try to get to it in the next 60 minutes or so. Jesse, let's begin by maybe looking back a week or so when we saw the national team play in 2 friendlies in Toronto, and I'm sure you would have preferred better outcomes and you would have preferred to have your first choice 11. But setting aside the results, what were some of your takeaways from the individual and the collective performances in those 2 matches as you look ahead to June and the final preparations for the World Cup?
Well, that's sort of a long answer, and we have some time, so we have some time to kill. Look, first I'd say thanks for having me, guys. John asked me about this a couple months ago, or maybe 6 weeks ago, and I was happy to find some time. So I'm down in Mexico right now, but I'll try to make this as interactive as possible. And so I encourage people to put a lot of questions out there, because the more we can make this a little bit of give and take and back and forth, I think the more informational it is for everyone. Look, when I took over the team, it was almost 2 years ago, and my entire strategy was about creating a process of making these players more prepared and really prepared for what the best games would be like in 2 years. So I kind of considered it a 3-phase process. And the first phase was year 1 was really trying to get – yeah, what's up? What's up, John?
Okay, go for it.
Okay. Good job, guys. Good technical abilities we have here. So back to my story. So 3-phase process. The first phase, I really wanted to tilt the playing style to being more vertical, to being more dynamic, right, and intensive. And so in year 1, I think we went through a lot of that. And part of that was also expanding the player pool. That became a little bit of a necessity, especially last summer, because all of a sudden we picked up a ton of injuries. But the phase 1 process is ongoing, and I'm continuing to push the elements at which we can play at to the level that we need to play at. But, I felt all along that we had accelerated that process and we were ahead of where I thought we would be. Then phase 2 was a little bit of understanding that, the best games against the best opponents still require savviness and intelligence and game intelligence and not just mentality, but organization and personality on the pitch of understanding how to handle each moment and what each opponent requires. And that is more difficult with a national team than a club team for obvious reasons. And so challenging the players to be more vocal, to take bigger roles in terms of the personality of the team, to take bigger roles in terms of the leadership of the team, that required more force feeding. So I started projecting and programming all of these different things within the team to get them to come out of their shells a little bit more. And it turned out to be very important. And I feel like we made a lot of progress in that area. Then, which leads me to your question, this was going to be the start of phase 3, which was really going to be about, preparing this group for what the World Cup would be in terms of, I've been to the World Cup as an assistant coach, and I know, and even for all of us that have watched World Cup games over the years, like big tournaments, these games have lots of twists and turns and anything can happen. And it's often the team that seizes the moment better is the team that is more successful. And so that was going to be phase 3, and that was going to be the emphasis of this last camp. But then all of a sudden going into camp, a bunch of players that we thought were going to be coming back from injury were behind schedule. And then we started picking up a bunch of little injuries before the camp. So we weren't able to include Alphonso Davies, Moise Bombito, Alistair Johnston, Steph Estacchio, Jacob Schaffelberg, Derek Cornelius wasn't fully back, Alfie Jones. Like you could start to go down the list, and most of them were defenders. So we changed, we shifted the camp, and we decided to make it more about performance and just doing everything we could to make sure that coming out of these games, we were going to have 2 good performances, 2 good results. And that was the best thing we could do to prepare the team for what May was going to be. Because what I didn't want to happen is what happened to the U.S. national team, right? They had 2 good opponents. They didn't perform well. And now there's tons of questions internally, externally. And I wanted to create stability and make sure that that anything we did was only going to set us up to have a good jump start for May. So in the end, we didn't have all of our players that we would have wished to have liked. But at the same time, since I've been here, we haven't focused on what we don't have or who's not available. And by the way, if you coach in the CSA, I knew when I came here that the resources were low, that the overall access to top level research and facilities, and that we were going to always have to figure out how to do more with less. And we've done that, right? We haven't made any excuses. We've always focused on the work, the preparation, the mentality of the intensity of every day, and it's benefited us. So when I look back at the camp, there were a lot of little things that, we could have done better, but the overall concentration and discipline and focus to stay on top of who we want to be, how we want to work, how we want to push things every day, focusing on positive progress, focusing on development of the overall player pool. That part, again, was very good. I think we got a lot of really good performances. Of course, I wish we could have won 2 games instead of draw them. But in some ways, like when Iceland goes up 2-0 on 2 mistakes from us, and when Tunisia forces us in a lot of transition moments, but at the same time, we're able to control the 2 opponents and play the exact way we want to play, and finding ways to get wins and finding ways not to lose games and all the rest. Like, I feel positive about the overall experience, and it gave us more information about all the individuals in the group and who are the best, what's the ranking list, and who are the best players to be considered for what we're going to need in the World Cup.
There you go. My microphone is on. Now, Jesse, about those 2 games that you just talked about, there seemed to be a little bit of, it lacked defensive stability, especially because you're pressing so high when you have the ball, and you're compressing the other team into their own half, and often your center backs are left 1v1 perhaps. So in that situation, I mean, are you willing going forward? Probably not, but are you willing going forward to add one player, another player back, to have more stability and have less that of that aggressive pressing into their own half?
No, I mean, look, our whole system is built on controlling the opponent at all times. Tony, I think you need to go mute, by the way. So, but now it requires, you know, in a lot of these moments, individual decision making, individual abilities, right? Like, I mean, look, Moise, it's no secret that Moise Bombito is an incredible talent and a very important player for us. And the fact that we've performed so well defensively without him has been a big testament to the overall group and their concentration on what it takes to be successful. You know, but we're obviously a different team when it's Alfonso, Moise, Derek, and Alistair, you know, but Richie and Nico have established themselves, and Luc de Fougerolles has established. So there's a lot more depth to everything that we do, but you know, in order to really push the game the way that we want, and most of those, we always know that we're most vulnerable when we have the ball because of how we try to push the game and how we try to control the opponent. But yeah, I mean, you know, we don't want to be as exposed by both how tactically we arrange ourselves and the behaviors of each player, and then how we balance out our team. But, you know, I think there were some good lessons in there for the group, and still, like, you know, I don't know if you know this, but against Iceland, when it was 11v11, they had 3 box entries. They literally touched the ball 3 times in our defensive box, right? Then when we were down a man, they got in 3 more times, but they were in our box. They literally had one player touch the ball 6 times in our box. And against Tunisia, it was 7, right? So, and by the way, in the last now 9 games, we've given up 3 goals, you know? So even though there have been, in this camp, there were some frailties in certain transition moments, we have been a very, very good and disciplined defensive team, and we have allowed very few opportunities for the opponent. So, you know, I think that'll be important to continue with that trend. And then look, the next thing we can get into is how do we create more scoring chances, right? And so we are continuing to try to do that. We're continuing to try to figure out the balance of what players can give us the best ability to unbalance the opponent, and how we arrange ourselves to do that.
Well, thanks, Jesse. But the addition of Marcelo will allow you to do that, won't it? I mean, unbalance the opponent, because he can play in the middle. You played him in the middle for a bit, you know, right behind, right through the middle, and he was very, very good. I mean, he can give you that extra, that additional, you know, 1v1 ability to take people on and beat them.
Yeah, I mean, look, I knew when I started following Marcelo that he was going to be a little bit different than a lot of the other players we had, and it was what was behind me kind of going after him so hard. You know, now he's still young, and for me, there were a lot of good moments he had, but there were still too many moments where he was playing laterally and not vertically enough, you know? So we got to continue to work with him to see plays that are more threatening, and then work with the player's understanding of how to provide that for him. Because in the end, like, you know, even when you're the way that we were pushing opponents back in this last camp, there's still the need to have verticality even against a deep opponent, and to test the back line, and to force them to have to still not just stand in zones and defend crosses. And because a lot of these international teams have big center backs, Bosnia will be very comfortable playing deep. Qatar has big center backs. Switzerland has very good center backs. So you still have to find ways to pull them apart and challenge them to deal with different movement, and then have individual quality like you're talking about to see final plays. So we'll keep working on that, but clearly now we have an arsenal of talent that can unbalance an opponent, which is a great thing to have as a coach.
Jesse, we're starting to get some questions in from some of the participants, so I thought I'd get to one of them quickly, and then we can sort of jump back and forth as we go along. But this first one comes from Jeff Salisbury. He says there still seems to be a question of who will partner Jonathan David up top. Now that you know who our first opponent will be in Toronto, and that's, of course, Bosnia, how has that helped solidify the first choice starters, especially Jonathan's striking partner?
Yeah, I mean, look, when it's come to Jonathan, first of all, there's some discussion about how to use him, right? Like Juventus has used him as a lone striker. Lille used him in a bit of a 5-4-1. Juventus plays more like a 3-4-3. You know, we defend in a 4-2-2-2, sometimes a 4-3-3, and we attack more in like either a 4-2-4 or a 3-box-3, right? So, and we've chosen to use Johnny more as someone who's a second striker or a second option up there, because we think that he's incredibly valuable in the way that we build up and possess the ball. But we still want him to be joining in the box late so that he can use his ability around the goal to score goals. You know, I mean, he's been our leading scorer. He's been our biggest threat. I think the way we use him is very functional, and I think even he agrees that it's the best way to use him. But obviously, having him around the goal is as much as possible is beneficial for him and for us. But I don't think standing him next to big center backs and is his best quality. And you know, when you see it in Serie A, it's not so easy for him to find space in that league where they really value kind of compact, deeper defending. So, yeah, I mean, look, some of it's been who can help occupy the back line while Johnny can still move around. And at times that's been Tani Oluwaseyi. When Kyle's been in his top form, I think Kyle provides the best balance of what we need in every way, which is pressing, physical presence, ability to hold up balls, ability to still combine and build up, ability to be effective at running in the box, ability to be good in transition. So when Kyle's in top form, he's the one that has all of those things, but it's just been about getting him to really push his overall level. But it's good to see him performing so well with Southampton now. Look, there's also been the discussion and the opportunity to use Johnny at different points with a player like Marcelo underneath him as more of a playmaker. And we'll continue to visit that and what that looks like. So, you know, I mean, the answer is I don't know yet. But in theory, Bosnia will be a team that will sit deeper. So we'll need a presence in the box to help fight for crosses and to help battle with center backs and to help pull them apart a little bit so that Johnny's not trying to do that all by himself. And so we'll see what that looks like. But it could look also, you know, there could be the opportunity to have a few more midfielders moving around their back line so that Johnny can have a little bit more space in the box in between the goalposts, right? So, you know, we'll be analyzing what both need to look like and then what kind of strategy we want to use for that match. But Johnny's flexible. Whatever we give him on the day, he's really intelligent, so he can do whatever we need. And then the other part of playing Bosnia is they're big, right? They're the second biggest team in the tournament. And so, you know, we can't just put a bunch of little guys on the pitch because we will pay the price on set pieces. So we have to make sure that we have a team that can also handle those moments.
Jesse, you were talking about Jonathan David before. I was watching a game, Juventus and somebody. I can't remember who it was. You know, at halftime, they have the stats. And so ran, 6.5 kilometers. On the Juventus team, they had 4 players on the screen. Jonathan David ran 5.2 kilometers, more than anybody on the Juventus team. And I was surprised. I was. But yeah. I mean, he likes to roam around. He likes to goes and finds the space, whatever it is. And so I was impressed by that and surprised and impressed. Yeah. Is that how you plan to use him, perhaps?
Well, look, for me, Johnny's had a really good season. It's just when you play at Juventus and you're the striker, you're almost only valued by your goals, right? And so for me, I watch every game that he plays because I'm there. And he's been, they have Yildiz and Conceição, right? Conceição is a very 1v1 player. Yildiz is a very good player. But Johnny's the one that's kind of moving around and putting plays together and then moving into the box and then coming back and picking up loose balls and then again getting in the box, and he's the one that's helping press and initiate things. And so he's doing a lot of the little things, I think, really well and helping the team. And look, I think Spalletti still sees that. It's just that, you know, if Johnny could have in there found a way to finish a couple more chances and be a little bit sharper at a few moments around the goal, then I think the entire dialogue about what Johnny's done this season would be different. But for me, and I've said this to Johnny a lot, that I watch him play and I see all the good things he does. And I see even if they use him off the bench or if they use him from the start, like the team is stronger when he's on the pitch because he does all those things. It's just that he's only going to be judged in many ways by how many goals he scores, but he knows that. And he's continuing to, I think, commit to what they want from him and then continuing to know how vital it is that he's more lethal around the goal.
Jesse, I just wanted to pick up on some of the points you were making there in terms of when you want your teams to press high and when you want to force turnovers so that you're on the front foot when you get the ball back. Do you modify that system based on what you know of the opponent's tendencies, or do you kind of approach each match with a similar game plan and then make any necessary adjustments in game?
No, I mean, look, our number one principle in defending is compactness, right? So we want to because if you want to be a good pressing team, each player has to know that if he gets beat, that the next player is in position to help. And if everyone always talks about they want their teams to play with courage and they want their teams to play brave. But one of the common phrases in defending is don't get beat. Don't get beat. Stand them up. Don't get beat. And you can't have a good pressing team if your players are overly concerned with getting beat. They have to be encouraged and they have to trust that there's a system in place that if they do get beat, that the next player's there. And that's the only way. And to do that, you have to be compact. So like we are always high for how we pick up, like where our pickup point is. But usually we don't press goal kicks usually. We usually allow the opponent to possess the ball and start to come in to our defensive block because we want to be always sprinting at the ball from a compact state, not from an open state, right? So, but when we press, we do it intensively, right? And then look, we have different tactics. What if a team builds with 4? What if a team builds with 3? What if they have 2 6s? What if they have 1 6? What if they have wingers? What if they have inverted wingers? What if they have, right? So we modify our overall tactics of how we press and how we defend based on what the opponent is presenting to us. However, our principles and our concepts of what we want to achieve don't change. And so that's whether it's with the ball, that's in transition, that's in all these phases of the game, that the principles stay the same, but the modifying of how we use our tactics change. And so, but what we found in the international game more than anything is that principles are more important than tactics. And so we're always reinforcing, even when they come back in, because a lot of times when they're with their teams, there are a lot of similar principles, but not at the rate that we want them done. So there's always like a refresher course. And then often the first training session is like a reintegration to, hey guys, remember this? And it's interesting because I found as an international coach that this March window is the most difficult to manage because it's the longest time the players have gone without hearing my voice and understanding exactly what is important. So, the 2 performances, the Mexico game where we lost and then this Iceland game, I felt like, we were a little bit behind a lot of the things that I wanted from the start, but we still gave good performances in both, but not as clear as what I would have hoped. So I'm still learning about what it is to be an international coach and what are the important touch points to make sure your team is on top of what you want them to be on top of.
Yeah, Jesse, you were talking about compactness. I was watching a webinar with Arsene Wenger, excuse me, And so FIFA did a study based on a tournament that was played in Saudi Arabia, I think it was. And so what he said about compactness is that through the study, it was clear that the teams that were better able, that, being compact in possession and out of possession, were the teams that went further in the tournament. As a matter of fact, he said the top four teams, the top three use their, this principle of compactness better than everybody else. So there is
Data. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's there. I mean, and it's clear. I wanted to ask you something about go ahead.
No. Well, look, I mean, even when you ask the questions about how we defend when we have the ball, and everything we do is about controlling the opponent in possession, right? And to control by how we play and possess the ball, to manipulate and break them down, but also to make sure that we control that if we ever lose it, we're better, we're more prepared, and we're better reacting to counterpress. We're more prepared for defensive transition, and we're better reactive for defensive transition than the opponent, and that we're more prepared to sprint and run, and that's also attacking transition, right? Like when I first went to the PDP in Edmonton, when I first got the job right after Copa America, what I said is I noticed that in the Canadian youth game, and these were the best teams in the country, right? U15, U17, girls and boys. I said almost every team had two phases of play, possession and defending. And there was very little transition play. And in international football, transition goals are 66% of run of play goals. So, and in World Cup, it's even higher, right? So like preparing your teams to be good in transition, especially in Canada with the type of athletes we have, is the most important thing. So, I mean, that's why the compactness, the compactness helps you when you defend, because you're harder to break down, but you're also in an overload when you win the ball to attack the team, the opponent more vertically. And when you have the ball, you're in an overload to possess and create quick combinations and to quickly counterpress and get the ball back, right? That's where the compactness as a strategy and as a principle becomes so important.
Yeah, and Jesse, just to continue with that, if you don't mind. I mean, first of all, I love the way you guys play. It's very, very exciting, that high defensive line, that, coordinated counter pressing, all of those things, the vertical play. I love it. It's very, very exciting. But you coached in Germany, and you coached against Flick, Hansi Flick, and you coached with Nagelsmann. One of the things that Flick said is, when he took over Barcelona, is, I love Cruyff's philosophy. It's about possession and positional play. But for me, football is all about scoring goals. And so we have to be more direct when we have the ball, right? And I see, that philosophy, I see a lot of that in your style of play. So my question to you is, how much has the playing philosophy of Nagelsmann and Flick affected or influenced your own style of play?
So, I mean, look, first, I consider myself a German trained coach, right? Like, and when I joined Red Bull, I think it refined my ideas of the way I wanted to play the game. And I think Germans are very strict and disciplined learners and trainers of the game. And so, like, even when if I even were to go through my son going through all the different countries, and he would have been like 9, and then he would have been 11 and like 14 the 2 times I was in Germany, and he got the best coaching of anywhere he was at when he was there, and even the way they shaped the games, and so there's a lot that can be learned from how the Germans do things. Yeah, I mean, look, I think I would argue that Flick and Nagelsmann learned more from Ralf Rangnick than they learned from him, or that I learned from them. And so Ralf was kind of like who was the grandfather of Red Bull, but was also the grandfather of a lot of the pressing evolution in Germany. But everybody has their own interpretation of it. Like Hansi and Julian are both really good coaches, and they're friends of mine. So, and I've learned a lot from the things that they do and the things they do well. I think, look, Hansi, when Hansi went to Bayern Munich, the first thing he did was introduce more physicality and less possession. And he did that at Barcelona as well. When Julian went to Leipzig, what he did is introduce more positional play and possession play and less intensity, right? But I think both of them, like even if you talk about Pep and Klopp over the years, I think Pep has gone more away from positional play and more to intensity, and Klopp has gone more away from intensity and more toward positional play. And I think that's what you've seen in the game, is that the evolution of the game has included both. So that's what I've tried to mimic as well. Is I've been a coach about intensity, but I have more ideas behind how I want to possess the ball, how I want to control the game in those moments, but never getting away from the intensity at which I want to play. So, I think we all strive to have well-rounded teams, but for me, the first point is to make sure that physically, not just technically and tactically, but physically, we impose ourselves in the game and impose ourselves on the opponent. And that's how I try to train the teams. And look, I find that when you introduce intensity and more dynamic play into training, it forces the players to have to adjust the way that they think and the speed of play at which they play and execute. And I'm constantly playing with this idea of intensity, quality, intensity, quality. And the more intense you make training, then the quality has to grow. The application of technical ability with the ball and combination play has to grow. But as soon as it gets too good, then I have to raise the intensity again so that they struggle to keep up until they're better. And that's the natural part of being a coach and a teacher that you have to inject into your teams every day.
Yeah, and Jesse, and you know what? It is clear that from when you had the team 2 years ago to now, that all of the things that you talked about, they're slowly happening and getting better. The team is very exciting to watch. So, but talking about, that physicality and stuff, and when you play Bosnia, they have some of the same qualities that Canada has. They're very aggressive, they're very well organized, and they press and lots of energy. Very physical. So, Alpha, asked that question before. How do you see that game developing?
Well, look, there's a trend in international football for sure, and it's even in some club football. But what teams do is they press high, and once they're overplayed or their initial press is beaten, they drop really low, right? And this is definitely Bosnia. This is Switzerland. This is most teams, right? So, look, with the ball, I think our ability to overplay their initial pressure, and then in that moment, see moments where we've exposed their compactness, and there's the ability to use our pace to get behind them. That will be vital against all three opponents that we play, right? Like if they want to show an initial, because also Switzerland is a very good pressing and counter-pressing team. But if we overplay them, then we can start to build into some of their vulnerabilities. And then look, again, I agree with you. Like Bosnia is very aggressive and intensive. Like they're in tight spaces. When the game is physical, they are very strong. But when the game opens up, they're not the fastest team, right? And I think that's where we can really find advantages, and we will have to find advantages. So that's what that game I think can look like. And then like I said, controlling them a little bit on set pieces. They'll play, if we press them well, they'll play a lot of long balls into Dzeko. Then they'll look to play off of him, and then they'll look to play to their pacey wingers and try to get into either transition or 1v1 situations wide. So we have to be good at managing that. And then also in those moments that they play into Dzeko, if we can pick up second balls or pressure him in the right way, those will be opportunities where their team is open to find moments in transition to try to punish them.
Jesse, there's as you can appreciate, there's a number of questions that are coming in from our participants, and they want to have kind of an overview of the entire national team program. Sean
Yes.
Campbell asks, how much time are you spending with the youth programs, both identifying future talents and developing the coaching staff? And what are your top priorities for the youth system?
Great question. Look, one of the reasons I was really excited about this job was a chance to mold the sport in the country, right? And look, what I've said about Canada in general is there's already been a lot of good work that's been done in the game. I mean, just look at our player pool and look at the women's player pool, right? Like, there's already been big advancements in the sport made. But one of the things that has been lacking is the CSA's centralized ability to dictate what is important for the sport, right? Every FA, every national team is the beacon for what the sport is in the country. And I think that we knew that there was an opportunity here. So the first step that needed to be made was an advancement in the overall financial situation so that we could actually create a federation. So Kevin Blue has been outstanding, and I think I even tweeted yesterday that there's been new reports put out about the overall financial status of the program, and that we've done a great job of raising funds through philanthropy. We've done a great job of reorganizing the CSB so that the contract is more beneficial for the CSA moving forward. And then obviously the benefits that we will have in hosting the home World Cup. But in 5 years, this federation will be in a drastically better situation financially, which allows us to hire more people of expertise, which allows us to build more facilities, which allows us to create a better centralized force behind what the sport is in the country. So then it allows people like me to use our experiences and expertise to help dictate what we think is important for the sport in the country, and to create a better sense of what the identity and DNA is. And so I've already invested a lot by making these trips for coaching clinics, by having open sessions, by having tons of these online type meetings, and a lot of guest coaches in with us. Like, I've invested a lot in what the sport is for people and for teams and for players already into the game. But the best thing we can do is have a really strong centralized youth national team and national team program that is very aligned, that has a clear playing style and identity, and have that naturally permeate throughout the soccer communities in the country, right? And as it's been right now, what I've done is basically just encourage people to think about the things that we do and how it might benefit them. But if we have a real strong CSA, and by the way, we had Kenneth Heiner-Moeller, we've got a really strong women's staff, coach and staff right now. And the more that we align all our efforts and create a clear identity for what we think the game needs to be, then the better opportunities we can give for everybody to understand how to fit in with what the national team program is, right? And the reality is that the more people that see how we train the players and what we think are important for the players, and the more people that can put that to practice with what they do in the grassroots and with their club teams and in their everyday environments, and the more that they can see, oh, okay, so the national team and the national team program, they value these things in players. And if I can help introduce that and teach that to my players, then I can give them a better opportunity to be part of the national team program. And then I can feel a bigger part of the overall ecosystem, right? Like, that's just what we're trying to create is that kind of unity and that kind of lineage, so people can understand, even if they don't agree with it, they can at least understand why we're doing it and what the purpose is behind it and how they can contribute, right? That's what we're trying to build.
Yeah, Jesse, to that point, a couple of years ago, I was involved briefly with a program, the NDC program, the women's program. So they train every day. This is a group of selected players, female, by the way, female. They train every day, and they go through all of the things that you were talking about. And out of that setup, there have been a lot of good quality players.
I'm sure.
Annabelle, she's 17, and she's now on the first team, national team, and Noelle, the goalkeeper, and so on and on. Are you thinking that something like that, perhaps, where you have this national developing centers,
in different
parts of the country,
So
Yeah.
look, our vision. So first, people talk about the challenge, the geographic challenge in Canada, and that's obviously true. But there's also only 40 million people, right? And there's a benefit to that there's actually, and then if I combine that with the overall Canadian mentality, which is, of course, there's pride and ego involved in every coach and in every club, but there's much better sense of like wanting to work together and wanting to be unified to make a difference, and very different than in the US for sure. And sorry for all you Americans on this call, but there's just much bigger egos and there's a much broader population to have to try to manage in the US. So yeah, I mean, a big part of our vision is building a residency for 16s and 17s, right? And building a national training center and engaging more in the provincial tournaments and provincial programs that funnel into the national team program, and a better sense of, like, again, the coaching methodologies so that we're training players to fit into the overall vision of what we're trying to create for the national team. Like all of those things, we're trying to build a pyramid type, development scale so that the best players, the best coaches, the best players, best administrators, everything have an opportunity to rise within the system and reward themselves for their overall talents, right? And look, this is how it was done in Red Bull. This is how it's done in the best federations around the world. This is how it's done in the best businesses, right? Take NASA. If you want to take NASA, if you want to take Apple, if you want to take GE back in the day, like whatever business you're talking about, the more aligned the overall mission and the responsibilities and the understanding of the identity of the mission was, the clearer it was throughout the organization, then the more successful they were and the more they produced high-level talented people, right? So that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you. Off.
Jesse, if we can bring it back to World Cup, there's an interesting question here from Steve LeBlanc, who says, when you develop the focus on intensity as a significant piece of your playing style, as you've done, how does the move from short international breaks to an extended World Cup time span, which in this case will be greater than a month if you go the distance, how does that play when you're thinking about managing the load and the squad?
Well, look, this is the most important thing. If you want to play intensively, that you better have a good physical methodology to the way you do things, right? And so through successes and failures as a coach, I've learned kind of what are the touch points in terms of how you train a team, what kind of physical methodologies you employ, like all of that. And actually at the Ontario Soccer Summit 2 years ago, I gave a presentation about that. And I said, look, if you want to train intensively, here are the touch points and here are the things to understand. And I even gave physical data, and I went through, like, day by day, training session by training, examples of what we do in training, how we do it in training, what the GPS data tells you. Now, not every coach has the resources to do that, but at least from a methodology perspective, they could see what I was trying to achieve and where we've been successful. And the challenge is always, like, as soon as Ralph Priso picks up a hamstring injury against Tunisia, this is right away, and it alerts our physical staff. Okay, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? What is the case of Ralph Priso? And then going back months and looking, okay, what could we have done differently? The hardest thing about these small windows is you don't have the impact that you have. I'd say that is maybe the most significant thing that's hard to manage, is the physical loading and how we challenge the players when they come in with us. And now let me say two things. It's not just my playing style. It's international and football in general is stronger, more athletic, more talented, and faster, right? So when the players come, regardless of my playing style, the games and the opponents that they're going to be presented with are going to be more intensive than what they're experienced from their club teams. For the most part, like, you could draw comparisons where maybe some teams are different, but but managing that will be important. The good thing about tournament play is I can actually manage, and my staff, we can manage that more carefully, day by day, moment by moment, than we do when we just get him for 10 days. So, for example, going into the World Cup camp, we will have our first 2 weeks will almost entirely be fitness. And the benefit we have is that now we have a team that understands exactly how we play. And so the integration process to get that out of every day and the necessity for that isn't quite at the same level of precedency, right? As much as it is getting the fitness levels right so that they're ready to perform at the levels that we need them to perform at. We'll be doing both, obviously, but the first 2 weeks, there'll be a major fitness element. And then we'll back off and we'll start to build in the overall tactical and technical methodologies, which will already be built in place, but when we'll be working on while we're doing the fitness so that when we play the games, we can play at the tempo, right, that we want, and that we have the types of athletes and the fitness levels, which, by the way, this is what I said when there's a reason why I took Canada, right? Like when I looked, I knew the player pool. I knew, like, if we were built with a bunch of slow guys, I wouldn't have taken the job. I wouldn't have been the right fit. But the day I took over the team, I said to the team, I'm like, look, guys, we can continue to go through a sort of a possession-based style of football, and we can grow into that. But look around the room, and what if we were more vertical and dynamic and we played more with speed and power? Like, what's the potential of what we could be? And by the way, the players looked around and went like, hell yeah, let's do that. So, I mean, there's a reason why I took this job, and there's a reason why they selected me to take this job, was because I think the fit of who I am and the way I think fits with what this team is and where they can go.
Yeah, but also, Jesse, your player pool now is deeper, and you have players that come into certain spots and take over if it's necessary, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, when I took the team, I mean, there's two things we've done. We've done a good job with dual nationals, right? Like we've gone out and found the right guys to introduce into the program. And then, part of it's been through injuries, like we talked about, but, a big emphasis of mine, even when I took the job, was to build the overall player pool so that it wasn't just going to be 11 players. And that was, look, when we were in Copa America, I was a little bit handcuffed to our starting 11 because of the success we were having, right? I really wanted to integrate more players, but it was tough to take players out of the lineup that had been performing really well, and we were still trying to perform in the tournament. But I'd say, like, maybe my proudest moment as the national team coach was the third place game, where we started 7 new players from the previous or the normal starting lineups. 10 were MLS or former MLS players, and one was an 18-year-old, right? And we took Uruguay, and who was at the time like 12th in the world or something, to the limit. And frankly, we were better than them on the day with a whole new team on the pitch. Like, that's when, as a coach, those are, obviously we all remember the successes and the trophies and all these kinds of things, but it's those kinds of moments where the actual work is rewarded, right? So that moment for me was really special. Even thinking about, some of the performances in the fall of 2025 against Romania, against Wales, against Colombia, where, we're missing some of our best players, but still perform at a really high level. So, that's been an emphasis, is to try to increase the player pool and to develop the player pool. So, look, and the two things I was told when I took the job, and this was conventional wisdom and also people's opinions, was that you can't have a playing style as a national team coach and you can't develop players at the national team level. And we've refuted both of those things, right? We've developed a clear playing style, and we've developed player after player after player after player. Often, even times like in the case of Marcelo Flores, like, he's not playing that much with his team, right? But when he comes with us, we felt like we can actually build him into what we do and help develop him so that he can be more prepared for his club team. And that's been an emphasis with all our guys. Like, take the learnings of what we're trying to teach you, take the learnings of the intensity and what international football is, and take it with you and apply it to what you do with your national or with your club teams. And we've seen a bunch of players' careers continue to grow and develop through that.
Thank you.
Jesse, we're coming up to the top of the hour, so I wanted to get to a few more questions. They're coming in quite rapidly, and I want to get to as many as we can to the attendees who are listening in today. This one is from William Chong, who it's more of a personal question, who is asking, do you have any particular advice in terms of developing your ability as a coach that you would have liked to have known when you were trying to progress as a coach as he is right now?
Yes. So, well, look, I mean, we all have to go on our own personal journeys, right? I would say when I was I still want to be considered a developing coach, but when I was really young and trying, to develop, who I was as a leader and as a tactician and as a trainer, I was just trying to soak up as much information as I could, watch as many training sessions as I could, learn from as many playing styles and coaches. And, so what I often tell even youth coaches is like, let's say you have a team that you play against that you hate their team. and when you play against them, it's always a battle. And like, I would say, get to know that coach and figure out what he does. Right. And really, like, that's what I used to do, is like almost the guys that I hated the most. I was like, and I had a friend of mine who's a chef, and he was incredibly humble. And he would always, like, when he would talk to me about football, he would say, well, like, I would say, like, man, I hate that coach and I hate that team and they're just a bunch of jerks. And my chef buddy would say, well, you just lost to them. Like, they must be doing something right, and like, I was like, you know what? He's right. And so I started to, and like, look, I would say that being a chef's a little bit easier. Like, you guys are all making your nice little dishes and like, it's all really cute. And, when you're a football coach or a sport guy, like, you're like, you always want to kill the opponent. Like that has to, the competitive will. But he opened my eyes to the idea that there's more ways to skin a cat, And so I started like getting to know my opponents more. And I started getting to know some of like my competitive enemies more and asking them questions about what they do and how they do it and why do they do that. And then I started thinking about how that fit with who I am. Right. And then through that, I developed my way. That's what I'd say, is you have to still figure out what's your way. Like, ask yourself, what are the 4 or 5 most important things to you in the way you coach the game or the way you think about the game? And then how do you refine those things to make sure that you're always feeding back to that whenever you're trying to push the overall development of your team? Like, if you have 5 things that you care a lot about, then how do you make sure that every training session, every game, every tutelage, every moment, you're continuing to feed those 5 things so that you're building an actual identity and that your team is performing an actual identity. So, I've learned to be more precise, and I've learned to be more open with who I am and making sure that I encourage that out of everything that I do every day. And this is what I say, I use for me, England is a mess with football. It's a mess. Like, it's the worst run businesses that I've ever seen. And partly because the Premier League has so much money that if something doesn't go well, they just throw more money in it. I mean, have you ever seen a shitstorm like Tottenham is right now, or like Nottingham Forest? Or it's incredible, right? It's incredible how these organizations just crumble, but it's because they don't have a defined way, right? And so look at the difference between Man City and Brentford, right? Like everyone would say, oh, Man City, what a great club. But Brentford is the one that's truly, truly outperforming, right? If you look at the money they spend, if you look at the resources they have, and then you look at the results that they have and what they've accomplished, and the reason is because they're incredibly defined and clear throughout the organization as to exactly what they are. And if you would even talk, like I had conversations with Thomas Frank, and he would be like, we play the worst football. We are awful to watch. It's awful, but it's effective, right? And that there's a learning to that. Like, as long as the organization is clear as to what they are and who they are, and they stick to it and they continue to value those things and judge themselves by those things, you will be successful, even if it's a type of football like Brentford that is awful to watch and awful to play.
Well, he has found a way to win with what he has, and he keeps doing it. He doesn't.
But they did this. They don't have an academy, so they scrapped the idea that you have to develop players. They always went out and bought undervalued players who are good at exactly what they wanted to be, right? And they made sure that their playing model was reinforced throughout their scouting, throughout their coaching, throughout their physical methodology, throughout everything that they do, right? And that's why I say, whether you're NASA, Apple, whatever phase of the world you want to be, if your identity is clear and your mission is clear and your focus and concentration and discipline to execute that is clear, you will be successful. It doesn't matter what you do.
Sorry, can I just step in for a second?
No.
Yeah.
I just think maybe in William's case, he might have been wanting to know what all these courses coaches need to take or should take. There's CONCACAF, there's UEFA, Canada. What pathway do you think maybe?
Well, look, I value coaching courses. I value it, but I say that maybe John, you may need to go mute because what I use on a daily basis is like I use less than 1% of what I learned in a coaching course in what I do on a daily basis. Okay. Now, that's not to say there's not value, right? And that, like, I've done a lot of these webinars. I've sat in on webinars. I've gone to training sessions, and there's little tidbits that you always take, and then you try to think about how it fits to who you are, right? So, but again, I think the key is the open-mindedness to try to look at things, to see what resonates with you, to figure out how that fits with what your experiences are and who you are as a person, what kind of players you have, what kind of level you coach at, right? What kind of attributes and weaknesses your player pool has, or each player individually, and then what you think you can take them, what kind of pathway you can take them on, and what things they need to be emphasized, and then how to be precise in how you put that into practice. Right? That is what's important, more important than your coaching courses. Trust me, right? Your overall experiences and feel and intuitions for what you think your players need and how to put that to practice every day. I got a thumbs up from a guy named Christopher.
Yeah. Yes.
I like that guy. I like that guy.
I love that answer. And you did say earlier, teacher, you're a teacher.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Al.
I think there is that thing between coaches that, a lot of them don't like to share their ideas. They don't like to talk to another coach and say, hey, this is what I do, and, and so on. And, everything is a secret with some of them, not with everybody,
Yeah.
And I've learned more as a coach. I mean, I'm 77, been coaching for 55 years. I'm still learning because, like you said, I have an open mind, and I go and watch a training session, and I go there and oh shit, I like that. Oh, that's really good. I'm going to try to use that. And I share, ideas, and we share it. A lot of coaches don't do that. And I think it's important that perhaps there is a little bit of sharing, a little bit more working together.
I mean, look, I've even gone more into like watching other sports now, and like kind of learning methodologies and from other sports and from other people. And I find like those things very interesting. Like I met with Paul Maurice down in Florida, and I'd watched his teams, and I played hockey growing up, so I know a little bit about hockey, but like he played a version of how I play. They forecheck, they close space, they attack the opponent, and they almost create opportunity from putting so much pressure on the opponent. Right. And so, and I was asking him about his mental methodologies and his psychologies with the players. And it was super interesting. Right. And it was like, there were a lot of little things that I thought of fit with who we are. And so I've included some of those things in the ways that I talk now about our team. So, but this is for me, like, one of the reasons I took the Canada job too is because, like, the higher levels I went in football, it's almost like it only matters if you win or lose. It doesn't matter what your philosophies are, what your process is, how you handle difficulty, how you treat people. Like, none of the shit matters. You're only judged by wins and losses. And I hated that. And then if you coupled it with, oh, he's an American, then it was just like, how stupid people are, right? Like, so then I took time to find something that was going to be so much more than that, about the things that I care about. And luckily I landed on Canada, right? Luckily I took my time. I was careful about the thoughts, and I landed on this job because it really fits with all the things that I care about and all the things that I try to put to practice with teams.
Yeah, I know. And we're lucky to have you, Jesse. So, it works both ways.
Yeah. No, I see that.
Listen, before we go, I just wanted to say something. I heard you say, one of the interviews that you had, I can't wait to show you how good we are this summer. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's going to be amazing. And one of the things that, I think I watched every game that Canada has played so far. I loved Cup America. That was the ultimate for me. It was amazing. But I see that game after game, some of your beliefs, your values, your attitude, and you think about the game that, your players are getting it. They're starting to get it, right? There is an air of confidence, with these guys that right now, borderline, maybe arrogant. There's a fine line between confidence and arrogance. But I think these guys they truly believe that they can accomplish anything. I heard you say on one of the interviews, we're going in this to win it. We're not just going to go there we're going in this to win it. And I think your players, are starting to believe that, and are trying to take your attitude and the way you think about the game and so on. And so when they think that, when they get to that point, I think they'll be able to take risks, and do things that other players wouldn't do. I was watching at Marcelo, right? First time he played with Canada, and he looked like he was there. He had been there forever. He was confident. He'd taken people on, and it's a credit to you that you put him in that situation, that he was able to express himself. And so, you said, I can't wait to show you how good they are this summer.
Yeah.
We can't wait to see it, Jesse.
Yeah. Look, there's what did I, look, we have a good player pool. Let's start there. Like I always say, good players make good coaches, not the other way around. Okay. But your job as a coach, I think, is to create a system and to understand your players and try to put them in positions to succeed. Right. And so we have created an environment that's very positive, but challenging. Right. And luckily with this player pool, I think the timing of me coming, like John Herdman did a really good job of changing standards. Right. He made it more professional. He made trainings and meetings more professional. He was very organized. He was very thorough, and he challenged these players to respect the national team program, right? And they responded. They responded because they're good. They're good men. And now my job, I think, was to push the standard at which they think high-level football is, and to take my experiences of what it was like to coach the best players in the world, to coach against the best players in the world, to coach against the best teams in the world and against the best coaches, and what those games feel like and what those games look like. And so right away, I told them that I was going to be pushing the envelope at everything that they did, but doing it in a way that was still fun, because the national team has to be fun. Like, they have to come in and really enjoy it. But there's also an enjoyment of really improving and developing. And I said to them, without insulting them, I said, all of them, I said, including Alfonso and Johnny, all of them play football mostly because they're good at it and they like it, and not enough about a pursuit of excellence. And I needed to change their overall standards and demands for what they think high-level football was. Everything from how they ate to how they slept to how they thought about things, then certainly to how they trained, to how they played, to how they analyzed. And so, the combination of creating a positive, enjoyable environment with a challenging, demanding environment has really benefited these players, and they've really enjoyed it, right? And so along with that, the character they have, the desire they have to play for the national team, the desire they have to show the country at this moment how good they are. Like all these things came together in a way where I was able to access and create higher levels of play than even they thought they could. And so, it was a convergence of a lot of different positive things happening at once and a lot of symmetries fitting together at the same time, where I don't know that any one person deserves the credit as much as the right time, the right people, the right ideas all came together. And look, we shouldn't pat ourselves on the back too much, because we've got a big challenge this summer, and we've got to make sure that in all ways, the last two years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years of work in this country is all going to be put to the test in 3 matches. We've got to be ready to show everybody how good we are.
And you are. Listen, I have a not a question, but a comment. How great would it be if along the way you played against Germany?
Well, they're good. They're good.
I think it would be amazing.
The ultimate goal is to get to the stage of the tournament where we're drawing the world's bests, right? Yeah. I mean, look, as a starting point, like, I have respect for all the teams in our group, but Switzerland is really good, like much better than people think. And so, we
know something about that, Jesse. The Italians know something about that.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, look, our goal is not just to get out of the group; it's to get to the phase of the tournament where we can make some big noise and beat a big team, like a really big team. And the beauty is, like, those are big aspirations, but the beauty is that this team believes that, right? And so, like, when people ask me, "What's your goal for the tournament?" From the beginning, I said, like, my goal is that no matter who we play, that our team actually knows and believes we're going to win. And that in itself, we've accomplished that. I know our team knows we can beat big teams, and I know that we're confident in who we are. But then now that we've accomplished that goal, we've got to go out and do it.
All right.
Jesse, we've gone well past the hour mark, and we want to respect your time. So we can wrap it up if this is the right moment. I do apologize to many of the participants who have asked questions that we weren't able to get to, but hopefully we can have you back at some point in the future. And
John is persistent. John is persistent.
he's very persistent, isn't he? But we do want to thank you once again for your time and taking time off from your schedule. It was a real privilege for both Tony and I to be co-hosting, and certainly for the participants to have had you join us this afternoon or this evening where you are. And thank you once again, and thanks to all the attendees for joining us today and participating with your questions. And John, I'll let you wrap up.
Yeah, thanks very much again, guys, and Jesse. Thank you very much, Jesse, for taking the time out of your busy day. I know you've got a lot of things going on there. I just wanted to remind the people that the National Soccer Coaches Association of Canada, we're a completely volunteer organization. First of all, we're always looking for volunteers. So if you're interested in helping us out, you can email me personally at nscac@rogers.com. You can also go to our website, nscac.ca, and pick up a membership. Membership's not that expensive, and now we're actually including with the membership a 1 year's subscription to the Coaches Hub from Soccer Profile, and that's from the UK. If you want to become a member of the NSCAC Plus United Soccer Coaches, we also have a special rate for Canadians that can save you money. Again, that's all found on our website, nscac.ca. Jesse, it's been a pleasure, and we're certainly hoping that that you win the World Cup. Thank you very much.
Jesse,
No
thank
pressure,
you.
Jesse.
No
Thanks,
pressure.
guys. All the best.
Take care. Have a good day.